My name is Lily. I'm 29 years old, and I was working as a marketing manager in Chicago when I realized my entire relationship was a lie. It wasn't just a few little white lies. It was an entire second life. One I didn't even know existed. I found his Finsta. I thought it was just another social media account, but what I uncovered shattered everything I thought I knew about him. He had another woman. He'd been texting her, sending her intimate photos, making plans while he told me he loved me. He told me I was the one. But that was all a game to him. If you've ever questioned your relationship or felt like something wasn't adding up, hit subscribe right now. Trust me, you don't want to miss the twists in this story. The worst part? He wasn't just gaslighting me. He was using me, my emotions, my trauma responses, to keep me around while he built a life with someone else. The truth hit harder than anything I could have imagined. It all started in a coffee shop in Lincoln Park, Chicago. It was a Saturday morning, early enough that the city was still waking up, the streets quiet, with just a few early risers grabbing their caffeine fix. I remember him clearly, his smile, his laugh. He had a way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room. That day, he was all charm and warmth, just what I needed. I'd been through my fair share of bad dates, but with him, everything felt different, genuine. He was in marketing too, a few years older than me, and we hit it off almost instantly. We talked about work, travel, our favorite places to eat in the city. We spent hours talking, laughing, connecting. It felt like we were on the same wavelength. I hadn't felt this drawn to someone in a long time. He started texting me right away, sending memes, checking in throughout the day. At first it was fun, flirty, light, the kind of texting you do when you're starting to get to know someone and it feels like there's potential. But before I knew it, the texting became constant. He'd text me at work when I was driving before I went to bed. It felt like love bombing. Looking back, it was clear, but at the time I just thought, this is what it's supposed to feel like when someone's really into you, right? He told me I was perfect, that he'd never met anyone like me. He sent me flowers, small notes. He said everything I wanted to hear. I didn't even know what love bombing was at the time. It just felt special. We had our first date a week later, and that night he told me he was falling for me. I didn't hesitate. I said it back, even though we barely knew each other. I felt like I had finally found someone who understood me. What I didn't know was that he was already weaving the web that would trap me. As the weeks passed, everything seemed perfect, or so I thought. But there were little things, tiny moments that I pushed aside. In hindsight, they were glaring signs of something much darker beneath the surface. At first, it was the disappearing acts. He'd be unreachable for hours, sometimes a whole day, and then pop up like nothing happened. "Sorry, I was busy at work," he'd say. I believed him. I didn't want to doubt him, didn't want to seem paranoid. But the silence felt off. And when I would confront him, he'd get defensive, brushing it off like I was the problem. He started pulling away emotionally too. The texts weren't as frequent. The late-night conversations dwindled. And I began to feel invisible. He'd give me just enough attention to keep me hooked, but never enough to truly feel secure. It was breadcrumbing, plain and simple, though I didn't know that term then. He'd give me a little and then disappear, only to return when I was starting to doubt myself. Then came the gaslighting. "You're overthinking this," he'd say when I asked about his lack of communication. "I'm just busy, can't you understand that?" When I'd bring up the past, things I had noticed, the inconsistencies, the odd behavior, he'd twist it, make me feel like I was imagining things. "You're just being paranoid," he'd say, and I'd wonder if maybe I was. Maybe I was overreacting. But deep down, something didn't feel right. I started doubting myself. Was I too needy? Was I asking for too much? He made me feel like I was crazy for even questioning his loyalty. Every time I'd bring something up, he'd gaslight me into thinking I was the one causing problems. The worst part was when he gave me the silent treatment. For days, I didn't know what to do. I'd send him messages, leave voicemails, but he wouldn't respond. His absence was like a cold weight. And when he finally returned, he acted like nothing happened. He'd smile, wrap his arms around me, and say how much he missed me. It was like nothing was ever wrong, but deep down I could feel myself spiraling. I was becoming someone I didn't recognize. I was constantly walking on eggshells, second-guessing everything I did or said. I was losing myself in him. and I didn't even know it. But that was all about to change. It all started one night when I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I was sitting at home scrolling through Instagram when I saw a notification on his phone. He'd left it on the kitchen counter while he was taking a shower, a rare thing since he was always glued to it. I wasn't proud of it, but curiosity got the better of me. I didn't even know what I was looking for. But as I picked up his phone, I noticed something strange. A message popped up on the screen. It wasn't from his usual contacts. It wasn't even from someone I recognized. It was a message from a girl named Emma. And the message? I miss you so much. Can't wait for tonight. I froze. My heart dropped into my stomach. I thought I had misread it, so I opened the message. My mind raced. He was texting her the same way he texted me. Sweet words, compliments, the kind of messages that felt like they came straight out of a romance novel. The kind of texts he used to send me when we were first getting to know each other. But this was different. It wasn't just a random text. The more I looked, the more I found. I scrolled through the conversation, my hands shaking, the cold reality starting to sink in. There were pictures. Cute selfies of them together. Them. It wasn't just casual flirting. This wasn't a one-time thing. They'd been talking for months. I started piecing things together. The strange disappearances, the distance between us, the odd late-night work calls, they all made sense now. He wasn't busy. He was lying. And he had been for weeks. I didn't know how to process it. The man who told me he loved me, who I had trusted with everything, had been living a double life. I couldn't stop shaking. The betrayal felt suffocating. But I wasn't done. I had to know the whole truth. So I went deeper. I searched his social media accounts, his emails, anything I could get my hands on. And that's when I found his Finsta, his second Instagram account, the one he'd been using to hide his real life. There, in plain sight, was everything I needed. The pictures. The messages. A whole side of him I never even knew existed. I felt like I was drowning in lies. He'd been keeping secrets, building another life with her while keeping me on the side. He'd been feeding me a script, a show, and I had been playing my part without even knowing. At that moment, I wasn't just angry. I was disgusted. I felt sick. How had I let myself get this far? How had I ignored all the red flags? How had I believed his words, his empty promises? I had to confront him. There was no way I could keep living this lie. When he walked in that night, I didn't say a word. I didn't even greet him. My mind was a storm of rage, betrayal, and heartbreak. And I was done pretending like everything was okay. He dropped his keys on the counter, looked at me with a casual smile, like nothing was wrong, like he hadn't just shattered my entire world. "Hey babe, how was your day?" he asked, his voice light and easy. But I wasn't fooled. I wasn't playing his game anymore. I didn't give him a chance to speak. I pulled out my phone and showed him the messages from his Finsta. I watched his face as he saw the proof, the evidence of everything he'd been doing behind my back. His expression changed, but not in the way I expected. He wasn't shocked or apologetic. Instead, he just stared at the screen like he was annoyed. "What is this?" I demanded, my voice shaking with fury. "Who is she? Tell me now." He blinked at the screen for a moment, then turned his gaze back to me, his eyes narrowing. "It's nothing. You're overreacting, Lily. This is ridiculous. Ridiculous." My stomach twisted. I had found everything. The truth was right there in front of us, but he was still lying. Still trying to manipulate me into thinking I was crazy? "You're really going to sit here and lie to my face?" I shot back, the anger rising in me like a tidal wave. "You've been texting her, sending her pictures, telling her you love her while you've been with me. Don't you dare tell me this is nothing," he scoffed, dismissing my words like they were insignificant. "It's not like that. You're just looking for a reason to blow this up. You're overthinking everything, as usual." That was his go-to move. Make me feel like I was the problem. It was textbook gaslighting, and it worked for so long. But not anymore. I was done. I was sick of him playing the victim, sick of him twisting everything I said, sick of him using me like I was his emotional punching bag. I had heard enough. And then came the worst part, the flying monkeys. Just as I was about to say more, his friends started calling me. One by one, they flooded my phone with messages, trying to convince me that I was overreacting. "It's not that serious," one of them texted. "You should just trust him. He's a good guy. They were all backing him, defending him. They couldn't see what I saw. Or worse, they didn't want to. It was like I was surrounded by people who didn't care about the truth, only about keeping him in their lives, keeping the peace. They didn't care that I had just found out the man I loved had been lying to me. They didn't care that he had shattered my trust into a million pieces. But I couldn't listen to them. I had to listen to myself for once. He tried to apologize, tried to pull me back in with his fake tears, but I was already mentally gone. I couldn't do it anymore. The damage was done. There was no going back. I'm done, I said, my voice steady. This is over. I'm done being part of your game. He tried to pull me back. Lily, wait. This isn't what you think, but I didn't want to hear it anymore. I grabbed my purse, walked out of the door, and slammed it behind me. I knew I was making the right choice, but it didn't make it any easier. I had just walked away from the person I thought I'd be with forever. The days that followed were a blur of pain and disbelief. I couldn't understand how someone I had trusted so deeply could betray me in such a cruel, calculated way. The silence after I left was deafening. No phone calls, no texts. It was like I didn't even exist to him anymore. And honestly, that was a relief. At first I was angry. I wanted revenge. I wanted to confront him, yell at him, make him feel the same heartbreak he had put me through. But then the reality sank in. I was done. I had walked away. There was no more room for his manipulation in my life. But then came the hoovering attempts. The first message came a few days after I left. I miss you. Let's talk. It was short, direct, but it was clear what he was trying to do. Reel me back in. It was almost like he couldn't let me go. He wasn't ready to give up his control over me. I ignored it. Another message came. I can't stop thinking about you. I'm so sorry. Please, let's talk. I sat there staring at the message for a long time, my heart aching. I wanted to respond. I wanted to hear him say the words I thought I needed, the words I believed he would say if he really loved me. But I knew it was a trap. He wasn't sorry. He was trying to bring me back into his orbit. He needed me to stay attached so he could continue with his games, his lies. I wasn't going to fall for it again. That's when I started the gray rock method. I stopped responding. I didn't give him any emotion, any attention. I became a wall, a stone. And slowly he gave up. His messages turned from pleading to cold, distant statements. Fine, whatever. You don't care. I get it. It stung, but in a strange way, it felt like freedom. I wasn't a pawn in his game anymore. But the hardest part wasn't him. It was me. The trauma bonding kicked in hard. I missed him. I missed the idea of him. I missed the version of him he showed me in the beginning. The sweet, loving man who had swept me off my feet. I kept telling myself I deserved better, but my mind kept replaying the good moments. The days when it felt like we were perfect together. It was hard to fight the urge to reach out. To ask him why. To get answers that I already knew the truth about. I wanted closure, but I realized I wasn't going to get it from him. I had to find closure within myself, so I did what I had to do. I stayed no contact. No matter how hard it got, I kept my distance. It wasn't about proving a point anymore. It was about my own healing. I had to rebuild myself from the inside out. I focused on work, on my friends, on things that made me feel good about who I was outside of him. Slowly, I started to regain pieces of myself I had lost in the chaos of our relationship. I spent weekends alone, going to coffee shops, reading books I hadn't touched in months. I even started therapy, something I had been putting off for a long time. Healing wasn't instant. It wasn't easy, but it was happening. It's been almost a year since I walked away from him. And while I'll never forget the pain, I've come to a place of quiet peace. It wasn't a victory, because there's no winning in a situation like that. It was simply the end of a cycle I never wanted to be in. I've learned that the person I loved was never real. The version of him he showed me was a mask, a facade he put on to keep me in his control. And while the idea of him still lingers in my thoughts sometimes, I know now that the love I thought we had was never love at all. I've learned to trust myself again. To trust my instincts. I'll never let someone manipulate me like that again. I've started to see relationships differently. I know my worth now, and I'll never settle for less than I deserve. But the biggest lesson? The most important one? I learned that leaving isn't weakness. It's strength. I didn't win. I just stopped playing a game I never signed up for. And somehow, that was enough. If this story resonated with you, drop a comment below. You're not alone in this. If you're still in a toxic situation, remember, walking away doesn't make you weak. It makes you free. Hit subscribe for more stories like mine and share your own experiences. We're all in this together.